There's the Senate leader.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I stand to move that the Senate do resolve into the Committee of All to conduct the confirmation hearings. I so move, Mr. President.
The Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do resolve to Committee of the Whole to continue the confirmation hearing. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, a motion has been moved and seconded that this Senate do resolve into Committee of the Whole to conduct the nominations exercise. Those who are in support of the motion say aye. Those who are against the motion say nay. The ayes have it. We now resolve into Committee of the Whole. Let me, on behalf of distinguished senators, welcome the proposed Governor of Central Bank, the 4 deputies to this confirmation, screening, and hearing. It is not usual for the Senate to read the correspondence from Mr. President on the same day and take the nomination screening on the same day. But because of the exigency and the very crucial role that the Central Bank plays in the lives of all Nigerians, and particularly as the regulator of the Nigerian economy, we decided that with the information of the emergency resignation from office of the Governor of Central Bank and the 4 deputies, we cannot allow a vacuum. So the Senate has to resume today to try to sort this out for the interest of all Nigerians and for the benefit of all Africans. So you are welcome. We'll start by taking the Central Bank proposed governor alone. So you will come in, you will introduce yourself, and let us know you. You will go a little bit into a summarized version of your resume, and thereafter you take questions from our distinguished senators. So I invite Olayemi Cardoso to take the stage.
Mr. President, Excellency, Senate President, distinguished Senator Goodwill Akpabio, Excellency, the Deputy President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Ibrahim Jibrin, distinguished leadership of these hallowed chambers, other distinguished senators, here present, ladies and gentlemen. I am indeed humbled to be here before you, standing as the nominee for the position of Governor of the Central Bank. My sincere appreciation goes to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The gravity of this moment is not in any way lost on me. I do not take lightly the confidence that has been reposed in me by the President through this nomination. I would also like to use this opportunity to recognize the senators representing Lagos State, Senator Tokes Abiru, Senator Wasiu Eshilokun, and Senator Adebule for their kind support and encouragement, as well as extend thanks to the government and people of Lagos State. Let me respectfully introduce myself. My name is Olayemi Cardoso. I was born 10th of July, 1957. I'm an indigene of Lagos State. I'm born to parents of Brazilian descent in Popo Aguda. I attended primary school at Corona School, Ikoyi, and I went on to do my secondary school at St. Gregory's College, Lagos. I then went on for further studies to Birmingham. I attended the University of Aston, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree in managerial and administrative studies, specializing in finance and accounting. My further education was at the Harvard Kennedy School, where I earned a master's degree in public administration, and I specialized in finance and economics. I also am a holder of a doctorate degree in business administration, honoris causa, from my alma mater, Aston University. My professional career began in the vibrant city of London, working with Howard Tilley & Co. Chartered Accountants. Little did I know that this would be the first step in a lifelong journey that would take me to places I could only dream of. In 1981, Citibank, one of the world's largest financial institutions, recognized my potential and invited me to join their ranks. I attended the credit training program in Athens, Greece, after which I was transferred to other locations, particularly Citibank branch in Ivory Coast, Abidjan. At that time, that was the West Africa Regional Office for Citibank. And of course, I focused on debt restructuring and other places where Citibank did not have a presence in West Africa, which was most places, including Nigeria. In 1981, I returned to my home country and I took up an appointment with Chase Merchant Bank, an affiliate of Chase Manhattan Bank, which I know you all know. And then in 1984, I joined Citibank when they in fact decided that they were going to set up an enterprise in Nigeria. And I was at the time one of the founding staff of Citibank in Nigeria, then Nigerian International Bank. During this period of time, if you look at my resume, you'll see I did various diversified experiences. Subsequent to that, I, in addition to other colleagues, co-founded Citizens International Bank, and I served there for 8 years as an executive director. In 1999, I was presented with a unique opportunity when Lagos State Government approached me as an inaugural Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget. In this capacity, I played a pivotal role in the reforms. And in actual fact, I ensured that much of the policy thrusts of the administration were not only drawn up, but were rigorously implemented. One of my achievements at the time was, of course, setting up a brand new ministry from scratch, which had no antecedent, and ensuring that the economy of Lagos was managed through this particular vehicle. I'm very happy that how many years later, virtually every single subnational entity within the Federation of Nigeria has copied this model. One of the groundbreaking efforts we had in this regard was the Engbeti Lagos Economic Summit. And I say this with all pride because till today, 20 years later, that particular entity as a major entity to articulate change within our society, and in particular to bring together the public, private, and other entities within and other interests within Lagos continues to thrive. In 2005, I returned to the private sector, where I continued to bridge the worlds of finance, governance, and public policy. Collaboration with esteemed international organizations such as the World Bank, the Ford Foundation, and the UN Habitat became a hallmark of this phase in my journey. From 2010 to 2022, I had the privilege of serving as chairman of Citibank, where I dedicated myself to enhancing both the financial and non-financial aspects of the institution. A highlight of my tenure was championing diversity and gender inclusion. resulting in a remarkable increase in the representation of women on the board from a mere 8% to an improved 50%. In September 2022, and I'll conclude with this, several months after stepping down as chairman of Citibank, I was given the Citibank Global Award for Leadership and Ingenuity. This was the first time such an award had been given to anybody in sub-Saharan Africa. And it was given in recognition of, I quote, for outstanding contributions to business and society over the course of a distinguished career within Nigeria's private, public, and not-for-profit sectors, as well as academia, and for fostering the country's financial stability and development. May I please now say a few words of what I consider to be a preliminary assessment of the challenges facing the Central Bank of Nigeria as we hopefully commence the process of giving our input into this very, very important entity. The President, in his inaugural address, conveyed the need to clean up the CBN and its monetary policies. As a first step in this task, the President appointed a special investigator in the affairs of CBN, whose work is currently underway. Permit me, Mr. President, to use these preliminary remarks to outline the challenges facing the central bank, introduce high-level proposals to address reformation challenges, and discuss the roles of a refocused central bank in supporting the economic agenda of the President Tinubu administration. What are the current challenges the Central Bank of Nigeria faces? They are numerous. In assessing these challenges, the Central Bank of Nigeria, preliminary questions are being raised on how these challenges may be addressed, and I think that is what we are all interested in. One, we identify the issue of corporate governance and how will issues of corporate governance be addressed. We also identify the diminished institutional autonomy. How can public and financial system stakeholders' confidence be restored in the autonomy and integrity of CBN? Can the central bank look to adopting a worldwide code for institutional autonomy? We also look at the need to refocus CBN back to its core functions. What needs to be in place to revert to evidence-based monetary policies? Discontinuation of unorthodox monetary policies and foreign currency management. Unorthodox use of ways and means spending. What controls can CBN develop to enforce statutory limits in ways and means? Of course, backlog of foreign exchange demand and how this can be met, and the lack of clarity in fiscal and monetary relationships. Where are the delineations and what should be the limits in CBN's fiscal interventions? Of course, very importantly, the issue of inflation and price stability, a major function of the central bank. What are the causes and what is CBN's proposed response to address inflation and price stability issues? We're also interested in access to foreign exchange markets and foreign exchange price discovery. What mechanisms exist to address foreign exchange rate unification under a willing buyer and seller arrangement? What would be the role of the central bank in the foreign exchange market going forward? Is there need for interest rate realignment to money supply, inflation, and market realities? Of course, very important to us current financial system stability. Clearly, these problem statements need an in-depth review by us and the central bank leadership to determine which mechanisms are currently working, what can be tweaked or dispensed with, and what new tools need to be introduced. Important to all of us, of course, is the element of economic growth, because please, can you hear? Okay. What is important to all of us is the element of economic growth. And our feeling is that in identifying the important issues with economic growth, we believe very strongly that size matters. Size matters. The economic policy proposals of the administration identify a set of fiscal reforms and growth targets that will achieve a $1 trillion GDP within 8 years. In reviewing selected growth targets that will achieve $1 trillion GDP, in reviewing selected BRICS and Mint countries with large populations and similar development characteristics as Nigeria, it is interesting to identify macroeconomic indices that point to Nigeria's economic trajectory, given faithful implementation of the proposed economic reforms. In economies bigger than $1 trillion, these indices include moderate inflation, sizable foreign reserves, and capacity to quickly rebound from cyclical economic downturns. In other words, to the extent that the administration has defined such a bold target for the country, it is our feeling that achieving this is very critical to achieve the stability that we require in various economic indices. It's not the only thing, but it is very important. So we believe that this is the right way to go, and we endorse this. Given this, a refocused CBN will better serve the country through monetary policy interventions and advisory roles that sustain implementation of the administration's fiscal proposals. Advisory role of CBN. Much has been made of past CBN forays into development financing, such that the lines between monetary policy and fiscal intervention have become blurred. In refocusing CBN to its core mandate, there is need to pull the CBN back from direct development finance interventions into more limited advisory roles that support economic growth. These advisory roles could include, for instance, 1, act as a catalyst in propagation of specialized institutions and financial products that support emerging sectors of the economy, facilitate new regulatory frameworks to unlock dormant capital, accelerate access to consumer credit, and expand financial inclusions to the masses.
Yes, point of order, Senator Jaribe. What order?
Mr. President, we are limited to our perspectives. You gave the nominee a particular directive, what to adhere to. But what is given to us is a literature. We must be limited to our perspectives. Bring the...
Come, Clark.
We must...
Senator Jaribe, please, what order, and you can read it out. Read it out.
Order 53-1. Any senator deviating from the provisions of these rules and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and any person here may be immediately called to order by the President of the Senate or the Chairman or by a senator rising to a point of order. Your Excellency, Mr. President, you gave the nominee a perspective to adhere to, and he has gone ahead to lecture us on certain things he considers necessary. For the purpose of this screening, I think we should adhere to what directive you gave to the nominee. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Jaribe, Order 52 that you read to Order 51, whichever order you use here. I've looked through. Talks about Senator. The person standing in front of us has not contested election to be a senator. So, point of order, dismiss. So the CBN nominee, most of the things you are saying are likely to be the concerns of the senators. So you take them seriously. Let them ask you the question, then from there you can elaborate. Thank you for your presentation. So I call on Senator Yari to ask the first question. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name remains Abdulaziz Abubakar Yari. I represent the good people of Zamfara West. No, not bandit, good ones. Mr. President, I'm from Zamfara State. Let me first congratulate the nominee of the Central Bank of Nigeria Governor, and also to use this opportunity also to congratulate other deputies. We pray Almighty God shall see you through and make a Nigerian economy better. Mr. President, I have two questions to CBN Governor. Mr. Governor, if you are confirmed, what do you intend to do in this current situation we found ourselves in the issue of foreign exchange? It's very, very critical to Nigerian economy. And as you know, from what you read and your experience, there is high hope from you by Nigerians to make Nigeria better and hope to come back, understanding from 2015, CBN CBN as a regulatory body is becoming like only source of Forex, which is not supposed to be. So on that line, what do you intend to do? And which hope are you going to give our people in diaspora and other investors in the economy so that they can come with their Forex, with the new fresh money into the account for our Nigerian economy development? That's number one. Number two, intervention. Sometimes I used to get lost, or I used to ask questions where we are before in the National Economic Council, but sometimes the answer is not very, very, very clear to us, to many of us, including the Senate President when I was there too. Is CBN operate on the same way, the pipe being regulatory kind of body of the banks as the commercial? Are there any way in their laws that they can make profit? Because the way sometimes CBN operate and sometimes come with the budget and expenditure, it's only that if you are making business and making profit that you can do such things. So what do you intend to do on the zone intervention and also the budget process of the CBN? Intervention in the sense that is it only through the ways and means that you make your intervention, or are there any other ways CBN make money to make intervention, more especially in agriculture and other industries and maybe investment? So these are my questions to the Governor of the Central Bank. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, so we can have a bit of order. I believe that the incoming Senate Governor of Central Bank, if confirmed by these hello chambers, will be working as a team with his colleagues. So I would like him to take a seat. Let the other four deputy governors briefly introduce themselves. As your questions are coming, then they will decide who will answer best, because I believe they come from different disciplines. And this last question, please write it down. He's trying to ask you that based on the kind of interventions or actions of the previous governors of Central Bank, where they were running a parallel government from the federal government, where did they get the funds from? Were the funds generated by them? Were they making profit? And if the CBN makes profit, does the profit belong to the governor of Central Bank to use as he likes? Or does it belong to the consolidated revenue account of the federal government of Nigeria? That's what Senator Yari wants to know. And I think it's also something that all the senators here would like to know. Because we hear of the CBN in agriculture, CBN in dam, CBN in construction of roads, CBN in tourism, CBN in purchase of plane, CBN in cocoa, CBN in building hostels in universities, CBN in building libraries, CBN in commissioning health centers, CBN in purchase of drugs, CBN. And so we would like to know from you, all these monies that CBN has been spending in trillions over the years, what kind of industry is CBN running to make those monies? Are those monies not meant to be appropriated by this chamber and by the National Assembly? Are they supposed to make profit and at the same time spend? And if they are making profit, what industries are they running? What nature of business is CBN engaged in? The profit, does it belong to CBN? So please, it's a very loaded question. I would like you to take your seat, let your colleagues briefly introduce themselves so that all of you can decide on who best to answer the question so we can save time. So I call on Madam Musara to introduce herself and take a seat. Thank you.
The Senate President, Senator Gostio Obotakpabio, distinguished Deputy Senate President Baru Jibril, other distinguished leadership of the Senate, and distinguished senators. Good afternoon. I stand here very humbled and honored as the acting Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. My name is Musara, and I come from Akwa Ibom State. I'm a graduate of biochemistry from the University of Uyo. I have an MBA from Obafemi Awolowo University. I'm an alumnus of Harvard Business School. Have attended several international programs, some of which are the Advanced Management Program in Harvard, General Management Program, the Strategic Marketing Management Program, Authentic Leadership. I've also attended Corporate Credit Analysis and Financial Modeling from Euromoney, and I'm also an alumnus of Lagos Business School. I am a seasoned banker with 2 decades of banking experience, cut across various aspects of banking. I started my banking experience from a very humble beginnings, working as a customer service officer and growing into the ranks up to executive director in August 2022 with the United Bank for Africa. As an executive director in 2022, I was responsible for the North Bank business. Responsible for 151 branches, managing the business of the entire North Bank, implementing turnaround strategies to improve the performance of ailing branches. In addition to that, we're able to grow customer base, improve revenue, and increase market share. Part of the things that we did very well was to take banking to the rural areas in line with the CBN initiative of financial inclusion. And I want to reassure every one of you today that I work with the new team to ensure that we change the narrative. We are very much aware of happenings in the economy. And I want to assure every one of you today that I work with the new team under the able leadership of Mr. Yemi Cardoso to ensure that we change the narrative in the Central Bank of Nigeria and the economy as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad Abdullahi Datijo. Sorry, Datijo is not a senator. He's not a senator. He's not a senator. Is he a senator? He's not a senator. There are many people running around.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, Your Excellency, the Deputy Senate President, Excellencies, distinguished leaders of the Senate, distinguished senators, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. With gratitude to Almighty Allah, my name is Muhammad Sani Abdullahi, born 26th October 1979 in Kaduna State. I stand before this hallowed chambers profoundly honored and deeply grateful for the privilege to speak in the presence of distinguished members of this Senate, the vanguard of our nation's democracy. With utmost humility and an unwavering sense of duty, I extend my heartfelt gratitude for the nomination for the position of Deputy Governor at the Central Bank of Nigeria. I owe immense gratitude to our revered father, leader, and statesman, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for his unwavering trust and confidence in presenting my name for this pivotal role. His visionary leadership and steadfast commitment to the prosperity of Nigeria have been a wellspring of inspiration for us all. Should I be confirmed, I pledge to support the Governor of the Bank and my colleagues to uphold the highest standards and principles as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Your Excellency, distinguished senators, I'd like to provide a very brief overview of my educational background and experience. My early years in primary and secondary school were spent in Kaduna State, in Essence International School. I completed a bachelor's degree in economics at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. I proceeded to also complete a master's in international affairs and diplomacy in ABU Zaria. Subsequently, I completed a master's degree in development economics and policy at the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom. I am currently rounding up a PhD in Henley Business School at the University of Reading. I have 2 decades of experience in development policy formulation, public finance, and project implementation. I have had a career spanning the private sector, public sector, and international development. My initial specialization was in credit and risk management during my tenure at EcoBank Nigeria, providing me with the foundational skills and experience in finance, risk assessment, and regulatory compliance. Subsequently, as a development economist, I have served as a member of the World Bank Expert Advisory Council and held the position of policy advisor at the Executive Office of the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in New York. These roles have allowed me to contribute to global development initiatives and gain valuable insight into the complexities of economic policy at an international level. In Kaduna State, I served as the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, followed by the position of Chief of Staff to the State Governor for over 7 years. In these capacities, I played a role in designing, coordinating, and implementing government policies across all sectors. I had the opportunity to lead the Infrastructure Council, overseeing the largest infrastructure expansion in the history of the state and coordinating the portfolio of economic and social infrastructure across 23 local governments. During my time as Commissioner Budget, we formulated economic policies, designed the state fiscal strategy, and coordinated the implementation and monitoring of the state budget. During that time, we also designed the State Development Plan, established our Economic Intelligence Unit, strengthened data and statistics capabilities, created an infrastructure master plan, industrial policy, and a plan to accelerate achievement of the SDGs. Through my career, I have held several positions of senior economist and economic advisor in the presidency and in the Nigeria Governors Forum, respectively. These roles have allowed me to contribute to shaping economic policies at the national and local level and aligning our objectives with global development priorities. In conclusion, my diverse experience in development policy, banking, public finance, and project implementation have equipped me with the necessary skills and insights to contribute effectively as the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, if confirmed. I firmly believe that with the dedicated leadership, the unwavering support of the National Assembly, strategic planning, and the resilience of our people, that we can overcome the economic challenges we face as a nation and achieve robust growth and stability. Once again, I thank you, Your Excellency, and distinguished senators for considering my nomination and humbly seek your support and valuable guidance as we embark on this important journey. Thank you for your time and consideration.
The distinguished colleagues, I now invite Mr. Philip Ikazo.
Most distinguished Senate President and the most distinguished Deputy Senate President and distinguished senators. My name is Philip Ikazo. I'm from Obusi in Anambra State. I studied economics in the University of Buckingham, majoring in accounting and financial management. I've had a diverse banking career over 30 years. I started my banking career with Nigerian American Merchant Bank, which was a subsidiary of Bank of Boston. I was trained in Boston for 6 months as a loan officer. Thereafter, I joined Merchant Banking Corporation, which was a subsidiary of Bank of Paribas then. Spent a good 6 years plus with Merchant Banking Corporation before moving on to EcoBank. In EcoBank, I had 2 roles as the General Manager, Institutional Banking, and also later served as the Pioneer Managing Director of EcoBank Kenya. In executive capacity, I also served as General Manager and Group General Manager in UBA. Non-executive capacity, I have served on boards in banks in Uganda, Kenya, United Kingdom, and Nigeria. And I also served on the board of ICRISAT, which is a crop research institute led by the World Bank, headquartered in India. I served on that board for 6 years. I'm hoping that with this opportunity to serve with Mr. Yemi Cardoso, an opportunity graciously granted by the President, I was also the Managing Director of Keystone Bank for 4 years. I was the MD of Keystone Bank for 4 years.
I think if that bank had collapsed, you don't need to bring it up.
I did the turnaround in the bank and handed it over to the new parties. So I'm humbled by the nomination by the President to serve with a thoroughbred professional like Mr. Yemi Cardoso and a very good team. And with the support of this most distinguished Senate, we hope to be able to face the task ahead, which is not an easy task in any way. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bala Bello.
Excellency, the President of the 10th Senate, distinguished Senator Godswill Obot Akpabio, Your Excellency, the Deputy Senate President of the 10th Senate, Senator Jibrin Barau, distinguished members of the 10th Senate, and of course, special recognition to the distinguished senators from Taraba State, Senator Shuaibulau, Taraba North, here present, Senator Excellency Haruna Manu, present in spirit, as well as Senator Jim Kuda of Taraba South, also present in spirit. I also recognize all other distinguished senators here present. And my name is Bala Mohamed Bello, and I'm from Kakara, Mambila Plateau, Sarana local government area of Taraba Central Senatorial Zone in Taraba State. I was born in the ancient city of Kakara, Taraba State, and I'm happily married, of course, with an army with 7 children. I stand before this respected chamber today, humble and highly honored by the trust reposed in me by His Excellency, the Father of the Nation, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, as a nominee to serve as a Deputy Governor on the board of the Central Bank of Nigeria. I thank Almighty God for making this possible, and I'm eternally grateful to Mr. President for giving me the opportunity to serve my fatherland once again. This is indeed a testimony to what we've done in the past, as I've been called by 2 different presidents to serve the fatherland. I just resigned from Nigeria Export-Import Bank, in which I was appointed 7 years ago to serve as the Executive Director of Corporate Services. And I'm also glad to say here that the chairman of one of the committees in which I was making presentation is here as a distinguished senator. I'm equally grateful to the 10th Senate for giving me the opportunity to present myself here for screening. I obtained my Bachelor of Science degree in accounting from Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, and also an MBA from the same institution. I've successfully completed the High Potential Leadership Program, Harvard Business School, Boston, Massachusetts, United States of America, and I've also completed the Executive Development Program as a young professional at the Wharton Business School, Philadelphia, in the US as well. I also hold a certificate in Operations Leadership from the Richard Ivey School of Business, University of Western Ontario, Canada, as well as a Portfolio Management Certificate from the New York Institute of Finance. In addition to that, I also hold the Stanford Graduate School of Business Certificate in Leading Change and Organizational Renewal, as well as other certificates that I've obtained in various business schools across the world. I started my career with Guaranty Trust Bank shortly after my NYC in 1999, and I joined the Securities and Exchange Commission as a financial analyst in the year 2000. I was a member of the committee of SEC that reviewed the Investment and Securities Act 2002 and 2003. In 2005, when the contributory pension scheme was brought into Nigeria by former President Obasanjo, I was headhunted to be the head of research and strategy of Sigma Bond Sterling Pensions, as it was then called, and subsequently I became the head of investment and chief investment officer of the company. In that capacity, I had direct administrative oversight and managerial responsibility of over 1.5 billion of pension assets under management for a period of 10 years. Subsequent to that, I became the first indigenous executive director of operations and later chief operating officer of Sigma Pensions when the white people that set up the place were leaving. I was also equally awarded the Ambassador for Peace by the Universal Peace Federation. This is an award that exemplifies the life of people who live for others because of some philanthropic activities that have been undertaken in my home state of Taraba State. I've attended several courses in investment management, wealth creation, portfolio construction, financial sector surveillance across the globe. I've had over 26 years cognate working experience in the financial services, the last 18 at executive level. Given the position of the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, if confirmed, I assure you that whatever experience I've gathered over the years, backed by a lot of brain power from some of the best gurus in the world, we are going to turn around the fortune of this bank with your support. I'm a very, very strong believer in teamwork and collaboration, and I also believe that together under the tutelage of the finance guru, Mr. Cardoso, we will not disappoint Nigerians. if approved by this honored chamber. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Senator Yari asked the question. I will invite distinguished Senator Izunaso. Please give them plain sheets, jot down the questions so we can answer in phases. Senator Izunaso, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President of the Senate, sitting as chair, and my distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Osita Izunaso. I represent Imo West. The question goes to all the nominees. I'm worried about some of the breaches of the CBN Act by previous administrations of CBN. I would like us to look at Section 49, Sub 1 of the CBN Act that empowers the CBN account to be audited and the auditors so appointed under Section 6. Well, you will agree with me that Section 49, Sub 2 further states that the Auditor General of the Federation shall examine the records of the CBN account, and thereafter, Section 50 says that such accounts shall now be transmitted to the National Assembly and to the President within 2 months of the close of the financial year. Why is it that this has not been the case? Because assuming that this has been happening, a lot of issues would have been settled even before now. Question number 2. The CBN Act, also in Section 2 Sub D, is clear about the functions of CBN as it relates to money and capital market operation. How come the activities of CBN is only most times dealing with money market, relegating the capital market that you know that is the benchmark of any economy? I would like you to look at this. I have a third question. Mr. President, okay, I've been asked to stop at 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting at the chair. I'm Senator Babangida Husseini, representing the good people of Jigawa Northwest. Mr. Presidential, the Governor-Nominee, my question really wanted, I really wanted to dwell on the issue of number of industries that are collapsing every day. The recent data from the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investments indicate that almost 370 industries have folded up in the last 1 year. My take was that a lot of interventions needed to be done in terms of supporting these industries with capital and soft loans. But listening to you, I captured you saying that you want to withdraw the CBN from the interventionist policies to more traditional catalytic policies. And I'm like, where do we handle this problem? Because really and truly, if we really want to grow the economy, if we really want to provide employment for our people, if we really want to save our scarce foreign exchange, then we have to develop our local industries. The era of import substitution strategy is gone. Every country now is developing and encouraging formation of industries and companies that will provide employment for their people. So I really want you to reconcile these positions, and maybe possibly if you have another policy thinking that will help us in bringing back to life these collapsing industries. Thank you.
I just want questions as possible so that when they are going to answer, they can divide themselves. So, distinguished Senator Baribe.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair. My name is Naya Baribe. I represent Abia South. I would like to congratulate all of you, Mr. Cardoso and the rest. And I just want to ask one question, because some of the questions I would have asked have been, would you have the courage to say no to what has brought Nigeria to where we now have an 87 trillion naira debt because of an indiscriminate use of ways and means? Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Ifeanyi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Ifeanyi, Anambra South, and may I congratulate you for this noble task you are about to go into. Mr. President, we have looked at their CVs, and no one needs to ask questions much on the CVs and the compliance, but the most important thing, Mr. President, the CBN governor, I want, if this house confirms you, I want you to be a listening governor, because from practicality, you find some technocrat or some people in the system that can help you. Looking at our economy today, everybody that is into importation today depends on CBN for forex. But I also think that if we're able to put 5 modular refineries in the Delta region, and then divide these 5 modular refineries to about 20 stakeholders each, the stakeholders in the industry can have opportunity to take product from their modular refinery and refine for the utilization of Nigeria. And we have in the budget, we have in the system 450,000 barrel of crude oil that goes for this process every day. So why do we continue to depend on petroleum importation when we can refine and then share among the stakeholders in the industry? So when you get in there, if confirmed by this Hello Chamber, I want you to listen to people with practical experience. Secondly, only just one more question, sir. I want you to look at importation. Everybody goes to CBN for importation left and right. I will want a situation where we can put a caveat on every demand of forex to sign a memorandum of understanding with EFCC or any of our institutions, for them to have a code that grants the agency to verify, and everything that relates to that importation will have that code, will have that number, so that people will not be recycling our forests. This is all I have to say. Thank you, and then at the same time, congratulations for being nominated.
Distinguished Senator Abiru. Okay, so distinguished Senator Oji, His Excellency. Go ahead. When Abiru is ready, I'll recognize him. Are you ready? Because you can only speak from your desk.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting in as the chair. And my name is Adetukumbo Abiru, Senator representing Lagos East Senatorial District. First and foremost, let me congratulate all the nominees, including starting from the governor of the CBN that is undergoing screening, and all his other colleagues, the deputies, governors, nominees. For me, this is really very exciting, more particularly because all of them, in one way or the other, we belong to the same profession. And I'm very, very encouraged and impressed with the kind of CVs they've all paraded. I am very convinced that we have a new set of leadership of the CBN that we'll be very proud of, and will have the capacity to handle the job at hand. From the CV, you can see that they are all accomplished their respective rights. I'm going to get there, sir. And with very diverse background. But I must in particular, without any bias, recognize Mr. Yemi Cardoso, being an indigene of Lagos, and would like to thank. I'm going to ask questions. Exactly. With due respect, sir. I'm the chairman of the banking committee. Like somebody said, not me. Okay, so I'll go to the question. So thank you very much. I must thank His Excellency, the President, for this caliber of nominees that we have. But speaking to the questions, I think that the acting CBN governor that we are screening right now has actually laid down the context of the questions, and it shows how prepared they are for this assignment. Because I listened carefully to him when he was trying to give a breakdown of the current challenges of the CBN as they see it today. And so my questions will be around what you presented. Now, the first question I would like to ask will have to do around the governance that you mentioned. I think we're at a point where, we need to restore the dignity and the confidence around the CBN. So I would like to know in clear terms, how do you want to go about the professionalism and the accountability of the CBN, in restoring the dignity the dignity of the institution? That is one. You also mentioned price stability. And my question around price stability, that is speaking about interest rate, inflation, and exchange rate. And the fact that you are also very conversant with the aspiration of the economic agenda of the new leadership of the country in achieving a 1 trillion GDP in the next 8 years. So my question then is, how are you going, what kind of mechanism are you going to put in place that will deal with all the distortions that we have in all of these price stability indices today as we have, so that we can begin to see the growth that we desire in this country? And lastly, I'll speak on financial system stability. You also mentioned the current state of the financial system stability of... Please, can I take this one, sir? Okay, just permit me to take this. Please, I plead. Can I just take this? Please, so on financial system stability, we have AMCON, which came about by the crisis that we experienced in 2008. Now, but unfortunately, AMCON will appear to just still be lingering. It came into being, if I recollect, maybe 2010. For a period of 10 years, this is almost 13 years after, we don't know when we are going to see the end of AMCON. I'm bringing this up because part of what we have today that we need to start planning ahead for, we have had COVID-19. We also are still undergoing the Ukraine-Russian war. The impact we have also impact on our system here. Even the reforms that we have currently in the country today. The first area the sector where you see the stress of all of these kind of challenges is in the financial system. Now, AMCON is still hanging. Look, we have down the line, we probably can see potential crisis. So what will be the plans around the financial system stability that you are going to put in place? Thank you very much.
Well, despite the long education, you finally asked the question. But if I understand you so that we can let our viewers at home really get the import of what you are asking. You are saying that it is very clear now that the Nigerian economy is in a very worrisome situation. And you are saying that with our local currency at an all-time low since 1960, where the naira, where the dollar is now exchanging at 1,000 naira to a dollar. 1,000 naira to $1. When there was a time when the naira was stronger than the dollar. It was at a time 70 cents to 1 naira. But today we are talking about 1,000 naira to a dollar. So you're asking the CBN governor and his team, what quick wins, what quick measures are they going to put in place to stop the slide, the helpless slide of the naira? Because I don't think the naira can help itself as it is forming. What will they do in the immediate, short term, long term, and in fact, in the short term interim measure, what will they do to stop the slide of the naira? So I think that is what we were trying to say before you came down to the fact that AMCON has existed. It was supposed to be a child of necessity for an emergency situation, but it has now turned around to be a standing committee. You understand? And so what measures will you put in place to bring an end to AMCON, if I understand what you are saying, so we don't end up suffering from the effect of the what we are putting as a short-term measure? Many countries in the world never use such short-term measure up to 10 years. So I think he's noting what you are saying. Is he going to have the boldness to bring AMCON to an end as soon as possible? And then he will give us the time frame. Distinguished Senator Oju Zakalo.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Oji Ozokalo. I represent Abia North. Mr. President, I want to first congratulate the nominee. And my own would not be really questioned. It's, number one, you've been given this job. And I know you are very capable because I just told Senator Abiri that I cannot see any other capable man at this time with his team to do this job. I know almost everybody there individually. They have the best education, they have the best training, and all the rest. So my questions are, now the manufacturers are suffering. Manufacturing capability in Nigeria, the capacity utilization has gone very down. The emoluments of our workers have gone very down. The transportation costs have gone very down. And the exchange rate is climbing every day. And the central bank in the past have left their job. They did not focus on policy making for the country. Because there is no way in the world a central bank will go and be talking about fuel or talking about rice. It's only Nigeria can hear that kind of rubbish. So are you going to be involving yourself in going to trade on petrol or trade on rice? Because it is embarrassing. Your job is to give us fiscal policy that will stand the side of time. It's not to go and be giving us that you are growing more rice or growing more. These are live for businessmen like us to grow more rice and manufacture more vegetable oils. So please, if you are confirmed by this Senate, what are you going to do in the short time, middle time, and long time purposes to rescue Naira? Because Naira is finished. I was just looking at today, somebody told me it's already 1,000. So if I have 100,000 Naira, I can't even buy the dollar. That's what it means. So what are you going to do? I don't want you to be a yes. Will you be able to tell the president, this is wrong, I will not do it? You must tell the Senate that you will be able to do that. Because you must be able to tell the president, no, this is wrong, I will not do it. I would rather resign than to do this. We are dying in Nigeria. Nigerian people must have value for governance. Please, I want you to take the Senate through the Senate President. Thank you very much. He's a very good guy. I know your capability. I've known you since I wasn't even a governor. I banked with you in all the banks where you work. Most of you, I banked with you people. And I know you're a very honest man. Will that honesty produce for you to take President Tinubu? No, sir, I will not be able to do this one. It's wrong. This is what I want you to carry in your mind. Please.
The distinguished Senator Ojus Okalo, you can see the anger you are expressing. You are expressing the anger on behalf of your colleagues and on behalf of the Nigerian people. And it's the belief of many Nigerians that if the immediate past management did not resign, they would have started importing toilet paper. Because they had gone into so many things, and they have no ways of checking, even cross-checking whether their policies were working. Anchor borrowers program debt, cement manufacturing debt, rise for all, the debt, NISAL program, no money going to Nigerians, debt, fertilizer importation, and everything, all sorts of things. So at the end, they were sitting down there while the Naira was falling and falling and falling and falling, and no solution. So we just want you to rush. And what is the name of that meeting you normally have to give PEC? Is it the MP? Yeah, we want you to go and hold MPC, even on either Madrid, so that you can help Nigeria. That's the simple truth. That's why we are making this sacrifice. That's why we are making this sacrifice. It's a very serious situation. If we cannot stem the tide of the slide of the Naira and stop the CBN from engaging in the manufacturing of textile, clothes, and then farm products, and claiming to import rice, claiming to import petroleum products. CBN was virtually, in fact, I went to 2 commissionings by CBN. I think they commissioned secondary school hostels, then they commissioned university hostel and University of Nigeria. I went to a few of them, and I saw, and they were also purchasing desks and chairs. They even went into book supply to some universities. There's nothing CBN has not done. But the only thing they have not been able to do is being a banker of bankers, and being a banker for Nigeria, and being able to stabilize the fiscal and monetary policies in this country. That's why you are coming. You are coming at a difficult time when the CBN, the image of the CBN has become an albatross. It has become something that worries all Nigerians. So I don't want us to go too far so that businessmen will not lose confidence in CBN. So Dr. Ojus Okalo, I think your question has covered almost everybody. But let's hear from His Excellency Adam Soshumole. He may have a perspective that will also add value. I will.
And my distinguished colleagues, thank you for this privilege to meet those who will manage our central bank. I want to differ very radically from what seems to be the general view. My view is I am suspicious of people whose main background come from commercial banking. Because central banking is about policy. It's not about marketing. It's not about seeking profit. It's about getting monetary policies right with clear focus on specific microeconomic objectives. Whether it is job creation, stabilizing a price regime, exchange rate regime, inflation regime, all of that. When listening to the CBs, people who have managed banks that have gone into liquidation, that cannot be used as positive in their favor. The truth has to be told. I am not suggesting that any one of them is responsible. I'm saying a doctor who parades the number of people who died under his care cannot forward that to me as a CV for me to appoint him as a Surgeon General. I don't need them to take note of that. That what we do in our small places of work, whether they survive or fail, goes to our credit or discredit. So they should take note.
However, sir, I think at the heart of our problem, and I need their views on this, is that the immediate past management of the bank emphasized their autonomy. But in the real world of macroeconomic management, every agency's activity rub off on another agency. There can be no autonomy from monetary authorities such that they do not interface with the fiscal authority. And even these two, in my view, if they do not relate with the Ministry of Trade and Commerce, because the challenge we deal with now is, at least to everybody here, everybody seems to have submitted completely to the so-called market forces and rely on the invisible hands of Adam Smith to regulate and determine the value of the Naira. It is now clear, after Babangida started this devaluation, that the Naira, the market forces can never stabilize the Naira. The state must intervene. Interest rate cannot be at 20%, 25%, and you are expecting the manufacturing sector to grow that require long-term investment, or investment that require long-term gestation period, borrowing at 20%. Even if you are a drug dealer, you will find that those dealing with drug in some other part of Latin America will be more competitive. So I think that there is need for a complete thinking outside the box. When the West celebrates our free market, no control, and so on, I'm always suspicious. When they come for us that we are doing the right thing, the state is withdrawing, less regulations at a time when we can see that even at the time of world trade, nation states are negotiating with other nation states to have specific trade relationship. So I feel we need this new team. We need this new team to completely think outside the box, and I will expect on this occasion, Mr. President, that all the things that many of our colleagues have spoken to, including my dear brother Ojekalu, if we allow Nigerians to import everything without restriction, and you have limited Naira dollars available, the Naira will continue to suffer devaluation. Our best time that you refer to, Mr. President, when you reminded us of a time where 1 Naira was $1.5 US. I was a very proud worker in the textile factory. In those days, government ordered a policy of backward integration, prohibit manufacturers from importing certain items. Even some textile fabrics were prohibited because the game of competition presupposes equality and a level playing field. You cannot ask a featherweight champion to go and engage a heavyweight champion in the name of competition. Nigeria needs specific tools to protect industries at home and not pretend that a man with 1 leg can compete in a race with a man with 2 legs. We need a complete radical shift. We don't need the West to clap for us. We need Nigeria to clap for us. So I want these bankers, Cardoso, I've heard of you very much. When I was in trade union, we trouble each other somehow when you were in Lagos. And even now, we trouble you so that this president succeed. We need to keep interrogating our assumptions and ensure that we are not copying Washington, all this international finance capital. It is their interest. There is no such thing as common interest. So, Mr. President, I thank you for allowing me to talk this much, because if this president is going to deliver on the renewed hope, it must devise new tools away from invisible market to visible hands that can be held responsible and accountable for our collective future. Thank you, sir.
Thank Senator Adam Doshimole for the lecture, even though we're expecting questions. But I must say that I identify myself with you. And since you did not ask any question, I would like to ask one on your behalf. Central Bank Governor, will you have the integrity, the steadfastness, and the courage to resist when politicians come to you to join presidential race and display your posters, even as a sitting CBN governor in political conventions? Yes. Will you rush to display your profile electronically at political conventions while sitting as a governor? And because politicians have told you you have enough money in central bank to do it, will you forget the fact that the money in central bank is not for you and it's not for politics? Did you hear what I said? Will you have the courage to resist the temptation to listen to politicians and then throw your hat into the ring and still go back to the office and sit as central bank governor? Will you rush to sabotage election in Nigeria by going for new notes? 2 days to election, when no country in the world changes a new notes under 1 year. You do your own in 14 days or 11 days in order to see how you can sabotage election in Nigeria. The minority leader, you say something, then the Deputy Senate President will cap it up, and then they will answer those line of questions. We can come back to the second round.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my question is a build-up from what Senator Ojikalu asked, and then what Senator Adams Oshomole just said, sir. The value of our Naira is nothing to write home about. Completely, I think, if I may be wrong, I may be right, the lowest in the whole world. If that is the case, this monetary policy of floating the Naira as a short-term measure, can it be reversed? Perhaps that will help
short and medium-term measures, but I would say something about the short-term measures, because that really is what bothers most people today, understandably. The medium-term measures have to do with balance of payments and over a period of time, like the sort of things that are being done already with respect to ensuring that you're getting more petroleum resources and diversifying the economic base of the country. That, I believe, will continue by the present administration, and of course they take time. So I think we should take that as a given. The more immediate is what we need to look at. And my sense is that there are two very important issues that we would have to address when and if we are nominated by these hallowed chambers. Number one, it is that of what I would term an operational issue. Right now, you will have a situation where, and we all know this, we can argue about the figures, the numbers, but we are aware that there are unsettled obligations by the central bank. We are aware there are unsettled obligations. Whether it's 4 billion, 5 billion, 7 billion, I don't know. But definitely the immediate priority will be to be able to verify the authenticity and the extent of what is owed. And then, of course, once we do that, we need to promptly find a way to take care of that. It would be naive for us to expect that we'll be making too much progress if we're not able to handle that side of the foreign exchange market. Number two, apart from the operational, there's one that is more system-related. And that involves ensuring that we come up with rules that are open, that are transparent, and that any of the players in that business understands. We cannot reasonably expect serious foreign investors, portfolio investors, foreign direct investors, and now we're talking about short-term, please. We cannot expect that those players who generally have an impact on your markets will do so if you do not have an open, transparent system that everybody understands and can rely on, and that is not subject to one day it is one way and the other day, the next day, you review without any notice. In setting up those guidelines, one will obviously carry relevant stakeholders along, and the comment was made earlier that one should be ready to engage people and to hear views. And that will obviously be one of the major objectives, to be able to get stakeholders together, understand where things are, and promptly, very quickly, come up with a strategy and a game plan that is well known to each other and then to everybody, and then implement it. So I believe that with those two things, though they may seem simple, but they are far less simple than they appear, those two immediate steps that we'll take will go a long way to ease up the restrictions we're having right now in terms of people wanting to come in. Those that want to do business in Nigeria, they want to see that the coast is clear. And if they don't, they will continue to hold on to their money. So that's something that I want to share with you so that you will understand that this is the short-term measures are ones that will be very, very important to us, myself and the team. Once we get in, it's something we will address right away. Now, how soon that will be done and put behind is a different matter, but I know that the impact will be such that we will be able to have greater liquidity coming into the market, and the loss of the seeming withholding of confidence will come back in. So I thought I should mention that. Then, on the issue of inflation and the issue of cost of goods, another one that, quite frankly, should be worrying to anybody. And as members of these hallowed chambers, I know that you all see your various constituents regularly, and you'll be hearing a lot of complaints, Again, there are longer-term measures, there are medium-term measures, and I believe that some of those measures are being taken already at the fiscal side to at least rein home a lot of the things that had happened in the past. You look at the removal of oil subsidy, you look at the tightening up on payments being made on taxes and a whole host of other areas. But in the short term, I want to explain that a couple of things will be very important to us. And I'm answering this question, I think I'll be answering one or two others. When you look at the dimension of inflation, just very quickly, the jury is out as to what the real components of inflation are. The jury is out. We certainly will be going to evidence-based monetary policies. We shall not be making decisions based on a whim. There will be need, I believe, to significantly revamp the infrastructure in the central bank with respect to data and to ensure that our data gathering capacity is significantly enhanced so that we can make decisions based on proper data. That's key in measuring your inflation. Now, on the issue of inflation and the issue of price of goods, as I said, the jury is out. Some people will say it's structural, some people will say it's money supply, but let us say it's a combination of both. If indeed it is inflation, food inflation, we know what to do. We need to ramp up production of food. That's a given. We have to ramp up production of food. And that is an effort that the fiscal side will tackle and is tackling, and we would collaborate with them to ensure that that happens. If it is energy, we know the challenges of energy, that if you are importing things into the country which have an energy component, you automatically are importing inflation, okay, in some sort. So again, the whole objective of ensuring that the energy side of the country is ramped up, we also will work very closely with the fiscal side to ensure that that happens. Finally, the big issue that comes up many times is the issue of money supply. Now, I think we all know, and that's why I said I hope this answer will answer different questions. The issue of money supply and the way that money has gone up tremendously in Nigeria. That in its own has major effect on inflation, major. And I've seen some relatively reliable studies that have shown that in the past 10, 15 years, at least 50% of inflation in Nigeria has been as a result of money supply and budget deficits and deficit financing. Let me not say budget, deficit financing. So it is a problem. It is a big problem. At least it certainly has been over a period of time, and it's something that we have to face frontally. And I want to assure you that going forward from the Central Bank of Nigeria, we will do everything possible to ensure that we work closely with the fiscal side and ensure that, as you know, the issue of deficit financing does not become a problem for us. We cannot afford to have the big challenges that we have had from deficit financing, which in effect has had the throwback that many of you here are concerned about. So I think that those are assurances I can give you coming from our side, that we will align, understanding what the fiscal side is, we'll work, maintain collaborative working relationship, and ensure that things do not get overheated or even get heated at all, because my view is that at this point in time, we cannot afford these kinds of excesses that we had in the past. So I hope that answers that question. Then there's the issue of internal control of the bank. My answer to that, quite frankly, is a very simple one. I believe that the central bank, under our watch, will have no choice but to embrace a culture of compliance. A culture of compliance. And that goes for even the acts that we're talking about, because the question was asked, why is it that the 2007 Act was in place, and yet people, breached it as they liked? We won't have that during our administration. We are not going to tolerate such. So we will not wait for oversight to come and tell us what to do. We will ensure that by the time the system is passing through us, we catch it and we deal with it. And we will have zero tolerance for abuse of compliance. That is a cultural shift, a change in mindset, but we will make sure it happens. We will definitely make sure it happens. And I also want to emphasize that one of those key mechanisms for oversight involves members of these hallowed chambers, where we recognize the fact that we have to work closely with these hallowed chambers to ensure that we deliver on compliance. We recognize that, and we will do that. We are clear as to what the Act says. We are clear as to how we need to visit the House and share the things we are doing, and we will do so, because now that there's a reset in the or we propose to have a reset in the central bank, we are hoping and we are appealing also to the members of these hallowed chambers to work with us, and we'll ensure that every 6 months, from what I gather, there has to be consultation, discussions with the Senate. Whatever the 2007 Act says, we need to comply with it. And that is the reason why I personally believe that that document is quite a strong, robust document. I feel that what has lacked there has been the issue of implementation and compliance. Fine, there may be rooms to talk about certain areas here and there. Yeah, and maybe it's a good enough time, although I think that the bigger issue, rather than looking at the document, is to ensure, okay, let us test this for a while and see how the culture of compliance takes root in the central bank. So with those, I think I would like to yield over to my colleagues to take a stab at one or two other issues that have been raised. Thank you.
Distinguished senators, I will just address a few of the points, even though Mr. Cardoso's remarks have covered most of it, but I think a lot of the questions and points I think it was mentioned that 370 industries have shut down in the recent past. Senator Ivan Yuba mentioned about the modular refineries, whether, if that is done, that would definitely reduce the pressure on the foreign exchange because we'll stop the importation. But I'd like to say that, and also the intervention issue raised by Senator Ojus Okalu, are we going to continue as a central bank to intervene in all sectors? I think it's important to point out, like Mr. Cardoso had mentioned, that this central bank is going to strengthen governance and follow monetary policies as its lead, because we are lucky that under this new administration, we have a very strong Ministry of Finance, because Ministry of Finance is responsible for fiscal policies and the central bank for monetary. So a lot of these interventions, as is done everywhere else in the world, is on the fiscal side. Central bank's job is to drive the policies that will maintain price stability, control inflation, and exchange rates. He talked about in the medium term the big elephant in the room with the exchange rate being balance of payments. But I even feel that what we do today, with the support of this Senate and the executive arm, that is the Ministry of Finance, we can bring that forward even to the near term. Take export, for example. Any one of us traveling to London today, go to any of the British supermarkets. You will see bananas from Ghana, corn from Kenya, avocado from South Africa. It's in the shelves. But we cannot export ours because we shoot ourselves in the foot. Every produce we get, before we get to the ports, they will keep it in the port for 2 weeks. Therefore, you can no longer export it. And once you export, what do? You get foreign exchange inflows. So we have to decide. This Senate will support the executive and drive the fiscal measures. It's not the job of central bank, like you said, to import fertilizer and palm produce. It's not our job. But we will ensure that we drive the policies that maintains price stability for those industries to thrive, for export to thrive. And we need to do it very quickly. So it's just to support what my governor has said, that we will ensure that there's a new strengthening of corporate governance, and like Senator Shomole said, thinking outside the box. I think even the executive has started that, because the plans for revenue collection, if that goes well, that's one problem solved. The first two things this government did was to stop the leakages. The subsidy and the unification of the exchange rate, very important to stop leakages, but it's causing a lot of pain. But once we put all these other things in place and drive with a strong central bank focusing on its mandate, we will see a change both in the short and the medium term. Thank you very much.
Let me just thank my colleagues and then point out that these people are new. They are just coming to inherit a very deep hole. All we can ask them is to think out of the box and bring new initiatives to try to stabilize the naira, stabilize the economy, and see how they can fill the trillions of outstanding indebtedness. The incoming CBN governor pointed out that we were spending monies based on just printing, that no revenue was coming. We were not actually making money, but we were spending money. He also said that we have already outstanding billions owed in foreign exchange by the central bank. So even if we make money now, the result may not show immediately because of the outstanding debts that we have to pay. I hope I understood you. So that is almost like a caveat. You are trying to give us advance warning that we should not expect immediate miracle, but that with compliance to regulation and the laws, that definitely you will turn things around. I think I got you in that direction. In other words, you are renewing the hope of Nigerians that things are going to be turned around for the better. The Deputy Senate President pointed out that there were lots and lots of infractions which possibly led to all the investigations that are going on today. I do know that if we keep you here, more questions will come. Because every person here would like to ask a question. But I know that you will only answer based on your previous knowledge. When President Obama was elected, and he started making appointments, he started calling former chief of that, former that, the youths were angry, and they said, this was not the change we expected. And he answered them, you cannot know Washington until you get to Washington. No matter what we ask you and you answer now, you cannot know the danger or the possibilities until you get into the books of the central bank. You need to be right inside. You need to evaluate the situation as much as you are determined to turn things around. But you need to know exactly where we are. And we can only do so if we confirm you and all records are made available to you. Senator Abu, is there anything you wanted to say to them? And so that we can go.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Ishiako Abo. I represent Adamawa North. You have rightly put it, Mr. President. They need to get in there before they know what is actually they are going to face. My challenge, or rather a question is, recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria published financial statements and audit report of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And when that financial report was published, there was wide cry. Everybody was crying, outcry against it, because it does not conform with the international financial reporting standards. That means it is materially misleading. Are you going to withdraw that misleading financial statements when you get to office and audit and report and get correct financial report and give Nigerians? Or what will you do differently? Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Wadada.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator Ahmed Wadada Aliyu, Nasarawa West, Senatorial District of Nasarawa State, and I still remain a horse rider. Mr. Nominee and members of your team as nominees as well, I congratulate all of you. And your resumes speak for all of you. And most of the sensitive and concerned issues around and about Central Bank of Nigeria vis-a-vis economic development of Nigeria have been talked about by my colleagues. But I still have, there are two areas that I need to take you on. One, monopoly. Monopoly, we all know, stifles growth and development. What is your team, you and your team, ready to do in collaboration and synergy with your colleagues in the fiscal side to ensure that monopoly is dealt away with in the system? Because the potentials that Nigeria has, we are supposed to have nothing less than 50 Dangotes competing around the globe, 50 Boas, 50 Otedolas, and more. And it is centrally to do with you. Central Bank is the nucleus in collaboration with the fiscal sector of the economy. The second question I have for you is that the informal sector plays a very germane role in the socio-economic development of every system. And in particular, our informal sector is still not integrated into the mainstream of our economic agenda. What will you do differently to ensure? And this informal sector / the youth, stand at nothing less than 60%. So if 60% of 200 million Nigerians are not or 60% is not integrated into the mainstream of the economic agenda, plans or activities of the economy, then it means we are yet to get there. These are the two I have for you, Mr. Nominee, and your colleagues.
We have to be careful so that we don't become mouth players of football. Because if we play football better than the players of the field, our outsiders. So really, the Zoom Senator, network, immediately after you, the leader will say something.
Thank you, Chairman, and my colleagues. I'm going to focus slightly on areas that we have not heard others talk about. I am concerned about new colonialism in Africa. I am concerned about continuously having our foreign reserves in those countries that are quietly determining what happens in Nigeria. We have foreign reserves in America. Most of the French colonies or colonized countries have foreign reserves in France. I'm going to ask you this, because we really need to start looking inwards in Africa. How do we generate, how do we grow our economies? We have all the resources. We have all that we need to make a difference in the world. But until we stop relying on huge foreign exchanges, we are not going to achieve that. So I'm going to ask, will you be willing to consider returning our foreign reserves to Nigeria, for instance, and allow our commercial banks to manage the foreign reserves? That is one question. Secondly, I would want to know whether at any point you will be supportive of a policy to have a common currency in Africa. Is it something that you'll be willing to support? Because if we have a common currency in Africa, I'm sure that we can do a lot better than we are doing now, instead of relying exclusively, almost exclusively, on having our economy linked to the dollar. But this is what is causing the slide. The daily slide is caused by the heavy reliance on US dollars. So I'm just wondering if at some point we as a nation will be prepared to become more economically independent instead of this over-reliance on American US dollars. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, my name is Oyewumi Olalere, representing Osun West Central District in Osun State. I join the previous speakers in congratulating the nominees. I'm particularly thrilled about the response of Mr. Cardoso when he was responding to questions. He did not describe himself as a magician by telling us that all Nigerian problems that are initiated by the single colleague will be solved in one day. Instead, you are frantic that there are some problems and you enlighten us on steps that will be taken. want to assure you that the Senate will be with you and will pray along with you. My question is this. In the whole world now, Nigeria is the only country that is using two currencies simultaneously. One green, one brown. As an incoming governor of Central Bank, if confirmed by the Senate, what is your take on this? Are we continuing the two simultaneously, or are we adopting one instead of one? Nigeria, we want to know this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ositangu.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you very much. I will be as brief as possible. My name is Senator Ositangu. I represent Enugu West in the Nigerian Senate. I will move away from the issue of foreign exchange, stability of Naira, and inflation, and go to technology. Nigeria, as we know, is a country with high intellectual capacity. Our youths are developing with full force beyond any other country in this world in terms of technology. Then if you come to the fintech ecosystem, it is surprising that we allowed it to be monopolized in such a way that the only system we use, which is remitter, sometimes you want to make a payment that they say the system is down. Will this new CBN allow that monopoly to continue? Are we going to give room for creativity and innovation so that we can have diversification and have things go better than it is going now? Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Asuko Egbeyan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Asuko Ekpenyong, Senator representing Cross River South. I would like to say on record that I've perused the CVs of the nominees here present, and I feel that based on their professional capacity, that they are up to the job. I personally and professionally know two of the nominees, Mohammed Abdullahi Sani and M. Musoro, and these are first-class brains, and I believe that there will be an advantage to the monetary policy of Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think we agree that over the couple of hours in these hollow chambers, they have acquitted themselves very honorably. I think we can take them to answer the last round of questions that have been asked and possibly consider them for clearance. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Distinguished Senator Jimo Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Mr. State President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, my distinguished colleague. Let me sincerely congratulate the nominees, and let me thank Philip for saying that it's not as easy as we expected, and I think the Senate President has laid emphasis on this, that a lot is expected for the future. The CBN governor proposed is one of the best bread we can get around, with a certificate, a degree from the Harvard Public Policy School, and I must really congratulate all of you. Now my question is this, so I don't waste time. Now, you are going to manage an economy with 1.3%, Mr. Senate President, 1.3% cash to GDP. 1.3% cash to GDP. I don't know what kind of economic policy you are going to advise our lovely president. And why are you afraid of loan? Because GDP to debt ratio is 30%. Or about 27%, meaning that you have opportunity to borrow as much as 70% of your GDP. Now, Dubai, for example, you can just add one or two examples. Dubai has a population of 12 million people. If you go it today, they are owing $167 billion. They borrow this money, they develop the economy, and they are paying back without any difficulties. Is it not the right time to think, like the Senate President said, and some of my distinguished colleagues here, that we think outside the box? Is thinking outside the box not involving that you have to really work on this GDP to debt ratio? Finally, you see that GDP to tax is about 18%, giving you very fantastic opportunity that you can still have 82% of tax there that are not collected. We cannot collect them because we have poor economic power. When the citizens are good and things are going well, you have opportunity to collect about 82% of your GDP hang on in the tax system. Now, the summary of what I want to say is that, one, you and me know, and let's be truthful to Mr. President and to Nigeria, that the variables, the impacted economic variables, are very weak. One, GDP to cash, which is 1.3%, GDP to debt ratio, which is about 32%. In fact, things are really, really bad, just like Senate President really summarized. And what are you going to do with these impacting variables? My views are as follows. I don't really want to make it all questions affairs. If we don't work on weak variables, how can we recover the economy? If we don't work on weak variables, how do we recover the economy? If what you have today is 7% cash, 93% of your cash is already arrested. You have 7% cash to work with. How do you do that? Capital project is 70%. The current is 30%. You're already on negative of 67%. What do you want to do? But your hope is there, because you are selected celebrant, in Nigeria. You have gone through the financial courses. All the courses you have attended, I've also attended all of them with 9 university degrees. But the key point I want to say here, Mr. Senate President, is that I agree with you conveniently that it's not going to be easy. And like Philip said, it will be a matter of ABC. So what I want to say is that you should concentrate in, looking at the variable one by one, whether you're going to set up a committee to look at each of these variables. It is when the variable reacts to your solution that economy can be well. If the variable remains very weak, what can you do with dollar? For example, like the Senate President pointed out, 1,000 to $1 US. We can do a lot. If you borrow funds, you are supposed to support your naira. And whatever you borrow, you are used to develop the economy so that the variable can react. But if you cannot work on the variables, eventually, sir, I don't think we can go anywhere. So I want to urge you, I wish you very fantastic journey to the central bank and work nicely there. I do know you have a lot of tasks to do. I don't envy you. But really, I beg of you, in the name of all Nigerians, in the name of this very respected Senate that have been sitting this morning, this is 5 o'clock, and we are still here. Please work on the variables. Forget about all those economic jargons. Take the variables one by one. If you can work on the variables, our economy will come back live. Mr. President, for the great opportunity of having to say a word to this fantastic gentleman that was elected by Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thanks.
Thank you. Distinguished Jimo Ibrahim, the Senate Prof. There is no way we would have concluded this exercise without getting a small lecture from you. Let's get a question this time from Senator Fadahosi.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, I congratulate the nominees, and particularly my brother from Brazilian origin. My questions are two. One on this anchor borrower that the last regime has pushed out, particularly meant for the farmers, only for the fund to land in building estates all over Nigeria. How do we recover this so that at least we can have some fund to fund these national projects? How do you track them down? Then number two, you have inflation of 24.7% for now, which is almost at par with that of Ghana. Without bringing this thing down, we are not going anywhere. Finally, our currency has just become that of Uganda under Idi Amin Dada, just paper. If you don't give the currency serious backing, we are going to have problems. The agencies and the ministries, particularly those ones that are in charge of revenue, they are bound to transfer all the revenue generated into the CBN. But you could notice that there are some banks that are hijackers when these funds are moving to CBN. How do you stop this? Because we could see all of them playing about with our money, and nothing happened to these commercial banks. You are supposed to be their supervisor, and you are supposed to advise them. This time around, most of the bank managing directors are even more powerful than CBN governors because of these malpractices. How do you check them, and how do you recover Nigeria from these monopoly? And last, the waivers. The waivers granted by the federal government. There was a time when in one of our budgets, you have about 3.7 trillion waivers for only 2 companies. Everybody knows. 2 companies and 1 family. What do you do to rescue Nigeria from the clutches of these powerful individuals? Thank you very much.
If I understand you, you are saying that only 2 companies enjoyed waiver of up to 6 trillion in Nigeria. Well, Sheikh Buba, you want to confirm that?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Sheikh Buba, representing good people of Bauchi South. Mr. President, I'm not going to confirm that, but I have simple 2 questions to the nominees. First of all, I want to congratulate the nominees, the governor and his deputies. My question goes like this, straight. Mr. Nominees, if CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, owes JP Morgan's 700 billion and Goldman Sachs 500 million USD, while 6.3 billion is owed as foreign currency. What is Nigeria's real external reserve? Secondly, if the reserve is below the known 33 billion USD, what will your administration do as CBN governor to bolster Nigerian foreign exchange reserves, and equally do to bring transparency and accountability in the Apex banks system to avoid the pitfalls of lack of clarity and accountability? Thank you, sir.
Let me thank Senator Shobuba for the very specific questions. And I know that the incoming governor of Central Bank, if confirmed by this Hello Chamber, must have listened to the question and must have jotted the question down. The immediate past Senate President, Senator Ahmed Lawan, you may want to add a voice The reason why I'm giving everybody a chance is that the central bank is very pivotal to the revamping of the Nigerian economy under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and I would like us to add our voices. It won't be the last we'll meet with them. We'll call them periodically. If need be, we can agree on every quarter so that they can come in and brief us on their efforts. But for today, let us even know the people that are going to man the new central bank to see whether we'll have a new focus. Please, sir, if you have no question, you can advise.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, sitting as chair, very distinguished colleagues. My name is Ahmed Ibrahim Leon. I represent Yobe North Senatorial District. Let me follow suit by congratulating the nominees, and your reputations have preceded your presence here. We have known most of you by names before your nominations. This is a very trying time for our country. We have so many challenges. Of course, the economic challenge is apparently the most worrisome. But then that is not the only challenge. The security challenge is also a very prominent and potent challenge that faces our country. I'm not going to ask any question. I'm going to raise concerns. The issue before us is to get our economy back to its feet. And as the leading economy in on the African continent, we should be leading in all spheres of the economic considerations. For me, I think you have a very difficult job. The job is, how do we turn around an economy that is on its knees and a socio-economic environment, especially the social environment, that does not support production in any ways. If we are talking about getting more foreign exchange, we must be productive. I am concerned with something that you've said. The bank deviated in some ways by maybe pushing a lot of activities that ordinarily shouldn't be. But I also believe that government must support certain sectors of the economy for us to have the economy work for the people. I don't believe in this idea of just giving funds or money to different agencies of government. But I believe that the ordinary person, the most ordinary, those that are vulnerable, need to be captured. Over 70% of Nigerians are simply not part of what we are doing. That is to say, the financial inclusion is very, very weak. And these are the people that need the support of government, need the economy to work for them, probably more than anybody else. Now, we have the issue of how to get across to them, because you have to bring them on board. Otherwise, the economy will still exclude them. In the past, we had growth, 7%, and so on and so forth. But it wasn't inclusive, because the growth was simply something that was working for those at the high part of the pyramid. We want a situation where our economy will be working for all of us, especially those that are at the bottom of the ladder. Finally, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, let me congratulate Mr. President himself for selecting and nominating Mr. or Professor Cardoso. Cardoso is a name that I've had for a very long time, associated with successes in Lagos. The other people, nominees, are nominees that are supposed to help him. But I think those that are supposed to help them are us. We are the ones to help them. Because we have to ensure that we work with them very closely. We had not much of engagement with CBN in the past. I think from day one, we are supposed to have an engagement process that will ensure that either on quarterly basis or whatever it is we must have learned from our experience of the past, that we need to be on board what is happening to the economy. And I want to assure you, if we keep our oversight very closely with this set of people, our economy will start to experience an improvement. But I believe that the security aspect of our life needs to be addressed. Otherwise, it will be marching on the same spot. Thank you very much for the privilege.
Banking is more about technology, and therefore, I'm asking two questions. Number one, a number of banks in Nigeria run foreign software, meaning that the licensing is in dollars, the annual recurring cost is in dollars, whereas their local capacities to develop banking software not only for the purpose of saving our foreign currencies, even for national security and the stability of financial system. So my first question is, this team, what will you be doing to ensure that we domesticate the technology, the software in particular, that run our banking system? Number two, also related to that, is the increasing incidence of cyber crimes, cyber frauds. Customers are losing money. Financial systems, financial institutions are also losing money on an increasing basis. I think your team, this new team, will also have to look closely to ensure that we do not undermine the confidence in the financial system or even the drive towards technology with increasing loss of money by customer and financial institutions. And I'll sit down with a third question, a very small one. Our fintech, one area Nigerians have demonstrated capacity is in financial technology space. Our fintechs are not only operating in Nigeria, they are operating outside the shores of Nigeria, and we know a lot of them. However, Nigeria is not taking full benefit of these efforts, of these initiatives, because a lot of them are legally domiciled outside the country, meaning that even their revenue in dollars are not recorded as part of the inflow into the country. It's also one area that I think the new CBN governor and his team will have to look at, so that as we develop the fintech, we also take the full benefit of their efforts and their foray into other countries to have an impact on the economy of Nigeria, particularly our foreign exchange. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to ask these questions.
Distinguished Senator Mustafa Saliu.
Your Excellency, the Senate President, my name is Saliu Mustafa, representing Kwara Central. Mr. Nominee and other fellow nominees, I want to come from the angle of customer protection. Most of us are victims of some of the incidentals that happen within the banking system. and when you complain to the bank, you don't get any result. As the supervisory or the banker of bankers, I want you to take more attention or pay more attention in customer protection. A lot of banks these days now, just one transaction alone, you are debited in multiple folds. And it is the customer that suffers this. If you bank in other climes in the world, if you do one transaction, you will not receive the kind of debit alert you receive here. They will debit you in over, just for one transaction, you will receive up to 4 or 5 different debits. So I will please want you to pay attention to that. Then also, lastly, in the money supply, I think the growth in the last 5 years, we were about 24 trillion. Now, as of today, we're talking about 64 trillion, which has driven pressure, it has mounted pressure on both the Naira and the FX. Please, you will have to look into this for us. Thank you very much.
Ndubueze.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair. My question is coming from the side of discipline, judging from what happened in the recent past with the CBN. Today, most Nigerians are worried that the CBN, the powers are so much concentrated on the CBN governor, as the governor of Central Bank and chairman of the board. I want to understand what would be the idea of our brothers who are appointed to take care of our economy that is badly devastated. What's their view in separating the chairman of the board from the CBN governor? You watch also that the recent past, the governor, maybe because they were the chairman and the governor at the same time, they couldn't pay so much advisory role to the executive. The way our dollar will be sold at a very, very reduced rate and they resold at a very high cost, I think it's part of the problems we have in the present economy we're operating. That's one. Okay. How do they also establish a little side of independency that will enable them advise the government appropriately? And that will help to reduce the recklessness in our financial system. Thank you. Let me stop there.
Distinguished Senator Mwebwe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain Senator Onyekachi Peter Mwebwe, representing the good people of Ebonyi North Central District of Ebonyi State. My question is just one and simple. Mr. Governor, if confirmed, and your deputies, you agree with me that it is no longer news that commercial banks today in Nigeria subject our pauper citizens to unnecessary charges in the name of maintenance charges. What plan have you to stop this or regulate same if allowed by law? Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, most of the questions they will have to write and then revert to us. as they get into the system, because they cannot give us all the answers now until they see the variables there. Then we cannot exhaust also all the questions, because we must continue to interact with them. On my part, I want to charge the Committee on Banking, Insurance, and other financial institutions to rise up to the occasion, and also charge the Committee on Finance to jointly monitor the activities of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Because if there was proper and more robust oversight, I'm sure even if they call them to order and they refused, they would have made it public so that Nigerians will actually know where things were going wrong and where things went wrong. The CBN governor, as part of the wrap-up, will you also join in shunning invitation by the House of Representatives and invitation by the Senate once you get into that exalted position and you feel that the Central Bank is higher than the Nigerian Parliament? Because I understand in the past that even with continuous invitation by committees, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, your predecessor used to shun invitations to these chambers. We have some old members here, am I right? And so where we could have offered advice when we noticed that they were losing focus, we could not, until some of us went to the convention ground and saw posters of the sitting CBN governor declaring for presidency of Nigeria and still returning back to his office. And we asked, where did the money come from? So 2 questions. Will you allow politicians to drag you into politics and lose focus? Will you also respect the institution of the parliament, which has the overriding authority to oversight you and could recommend your sack to Mr. President? So please wrap up.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the governor has asked me to take a few of the questions before he wraps up. Thank you very much, distinguished senators, for the depth and detail of the questions that we've received. Many of the questions that have been asked today are also the questions that we have discussed in the early days of this appointment, and these are questions that we are also still, many of them, considering. So it is very clear, as His Excellency the President has said, that we will not have all the answers today. What I will just mention are very quickly 6 things, which I believe cover a few of the questions, and then if I miss any, I believe the Governor or my colleagues will remind me. The first major issue that we have continued to discuss under the leadership of the Governor is regarding the importance of returning the bank to its core mandate. And this is as dictated by the Act setting up the Central Bank of Nigeria. So we have recognized that the bank has strayed significantly over the last few years, and there's a huge desire to return the bank to its core mandate as a central bank. The second, which I have here, which is also coincidentally what the President just finished mentioning, is the importance of depoliticizing the central bank. There has been a significant amount of anecdotal information that has been shared here today. I will not go into it, but this is a core focus of the new team if confirmed. The third, as the Governor has repeatedly said to us, is the importance of communication and feedback, open and transparent communication, especially with this hallowed chamber and the National Assembly in its entirety. So, Mr. President and distinguished senators, if confirmed, what you will see from this team is significant amount of communication, feedback, and open and transparent relations between us and the entirety of Nigerians. The fifth, because I've added the National Assembly to the fourth, is the importance of evidence-based policies and the sanctity of data. Over the last couple of weeks, we have seen a lot of information come out regarding the operations of the central bank. Some of this information is correct, a lot of it is wrong. So it is very important that before we delve into talking about details, that we actually verify the data that we are going to be working with. So working on this has a lot to do with some of the questions that have been asked, for example, regarding the financial statements of the bank itself. These are issues that we have to look into if confirmed. The sixth is the importance, very critical importance, of the collaboration between the fiscal side and the monetary side. This is overriding a lot of issues, including around exchange rate management, monetary policy, and all other issues that concern the mandate of the central bank. The seventh, and most important, I think, for the team, is the recognition that this is not going to be easy work, that there's going to need to be a lot of hard work and dedication, and that the team is willing and ready to work with key stakeholders, particularly the National Assembly, to ensure that we restore the dignity of the central bank. I will touch on two of the detailed questions that were asked, and then I will yield the floor back to the Governor. The first regarding the issue of monopoly, asked by distinguished Senator Wadada. I think that in very close collaboration with the fiscal side of the House, particularly the Ministry of Finance, there is a target that the government has set for itself of 7% growth rate. Distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawan has mentioned that in the past, this growth has not been inclusive. I think that is very critical that in terms of that collaboration, that this growth doesn't just create one or two more languages or $10, as you've mentioned, but plenty and in an inclusive manner. So 7% growth rate will allow us over a 10-year period, 8-year period, to double the economy based on the mathematical rule of 7. On the informal sector, I think this is a very, very important conversation. And in fact, if you look at the size of the economy, many, many experts believe that the economy is grossly understated because we are not really considering the size, structure, function of the informal economy. So we need to look at this very closely, together with other actors, the National Bureau of Statistics, and other players in the economy, to ensure that what we're doing is, as much as possible, going to be widespread to most Nigerians. Thank you very much. I'll yield the floor, Mr. Governor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will try and quickly address some of the questions that have been raised that haven't been answered, and then those that we can't, like Mr. President has suggested, we have taken note and will respond accordingly. As he has said, we are new to we've not really set our feet in the central bank, so we need to collect the data and know exactly. Now, one of them again, and I believe this was asked by Mr. President himself, and it was a question as to, one, whether I will allow myself to be hijacked by politicians, and two, whether the CBN under my watch will disobey orders to come and have a dialogue. Now, number one, with respect to the hijacking by politicians, I said something earlier, and I want to emphasize this. It is important that we who are being considered for these positions today understand that this is a position of trust. It's a position of great trust. And with that goes the huge responsibility to meet up to that trust. And I know that a lot of time and effort was gone into choosing the particular people who are standing here for nomination today. I know that. And as far as I am concerned, under my leadership, we will not be hijacked by anybody. The idea is to ensure that we do what is right, when it is right, and how it is right. We've seen what the effects of not doing things right have been, and Mr. President spoke about that earlier today. We've seen that, and we do not intend for that to be repeated. Secondly, on the issue of not obeying CBN's, I beg your pardon, of not obeying the hallowed chamber's requests for conversations. Frankly, I have absolutely no doubt that that has got to be part of the engagement that has been spoken about earlier. And apart from that, it is actually in the law. The law specifies that such dialogue should take place twice a year. And as I said, with the resetting of the central bank, we want to ensure that we do not run foul of the law. So I don't want anybody to feel that we would knowingly disobey the law. We would not. In fact, knowingly or unknowingly, we realize that it is our duty to ensure that we obey the law. And it goes back to the issue of culture of compliance. Culture of compliance. We are going to ingrain a culture of compliance within the central bank. There will be zero tolerance for not complying with orders. And I can assure you that that tone will be fully set from the top. That, again, I'll remind you that in my career, in my lifetime, that's all I've been used to. I've been used to doing things properly, and I've been used to obeying rules and regulations as they've been carefully thought out and have been implemented. Another question that came out was the issue of the chairman of the central bank holding both roles of chairman and CEO together, and whether this was the appropriate thing to do or whether it should be reconsidered. Now, my perspective on that, quite frankly, is as follows. Number one, and again, please take it from somebody who has served on boards worldwide, considerable boards over the years. I've had a tremendous amount of high-level corporate governance experience. I think that a lot depends on the people that are selected to come on boards. Very important. And we will ensure that we get the best people to join us on those boards. This should not be a mere academic exercise. We will look for the best people who can offer the right advice, who have the right qualifications, who can contribute selflessly, and who themselves can say no. So it's not even just a question of me saying no to others. It is everybody on that board being independent-minded enough to say it exactly as it is. That's number one. Number two is that this particular issue that has been raised, I'm aware, is global practice. If you go to the United States and you go to England and many parts of Europe, I don't know the other, but I certainly know in the UK, that is what obtains. And to the best of my knowledge, it works well, largely with the view that it's an attempt to maintain the independence of that particular very important entity. And let's not fool ourselves. The issue here is that we are building an institution. We're building an institution back to what we know it has been. And when we talk about central bank infraction here, corporate governance didn't work, this didn't work, I also want to tell you that from my perspective, there are people within the central bank, much as the institution itself may have had its own issues. But there are people within the central bank who have seen it being what it truly was. There are people there who have served for decades and have seen that institution what it really was at its peak. They will look for those who are good to join that thinking and begin to change the mindset of others who don't really, or who have been used to doing it differently. So it's a crusade, and I'm very certain that we will survive on that crusade and we'll be successful, because the future of Nigeria rests on it. I believe very strongly that some very, very critical decisions have been taken already that is taking Nigeria in the right direction. It is now our own duty to help to consolidate on those very, very important initiatives that nobody has been able to do before. Nobody has been able to do before. To the extent we are now on that road, we will not waver and find that we do not accomplish the giant strides that have already been taken. Then, of course, an issue that came up severally was the issue of bank charges. And I agree, it's something that we will certainly look into. I mean, we've all had one way or the other been part of the receiving end of that. Then, the issue of anchor borrower, how do you track them down? Again, you know, we need to really look at those numbers and understand what the composition really is, okay, before we can take any action on that. The questions that have been asked are very good, very helpful, and to be frank, much as this hallowed chamber, distinguished members of this chamber may feel that they have come to interrogate us and all that, I want to tell you that we have also benefited tremendously from hearing the quality of these questions and being ready to go back to ensure that we can put them into use where we need to and revert where we don't have the answers. I will just conclude by saying that, by thanking the members of these hallowed chambers. It's been a very, very useful encounter. And I believe very strongly that in the process of resetting and rethinking, reshaping the central bank, the critical things remain: confidence building. Transparency and accountability comes under that. To be able to build that confidence that many people here spoke about. When you spoke about the fact that Naira was going down, you're concerned about the value of the Naira, and I tried to explain that. It's all about confidence. And once we can build that confidence back through good corporate governance, culture of compliance, I'm certain that we are headed in the right direction, and the pains that many Nigerians have felt over the years in due course will be something of the past. Thank you very much.
Let me, on behalf of the 10 Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, thank the nominees for exhaustively answering most of our questions, and to urge them that the ones you could not proceed answers immediately, as you get into office, you try to get something back to us, because it's a learning curve, and we are very interested in getting the situation out of the doldrum. So thank you so much. You may now step forward and take leave of the Senate, one after the other. Distinguished colleagues, having concluded the screening exercise, I want to put a question. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Mr. Olayemi Cardoso for appointment as Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Madam Musora for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Muhammad Abdullahi Datijo for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Philip Ikazo for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Bala Bello for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I stand to move that the Senate reverts back to plenary to enable the chairman report progress. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair, distinguished senators. I rise to second the motion moved by leader of the Senate that the Senate reverse back to plenary to report progress. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that this Senate do revert to plenary to report progress. Those in support of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So we revert to the plenary to report progress. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the request of Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief for the confirmation of nominees for appointment as Governor and Deputy Governors of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The nominees answered questions from distinguished senators on CBN matters and other matters and a number of topical issues. Thereafter, the committee approved the nominations of Olayemi Cardoso for the position of Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Madam Musora, Mohammed Abdullahi Datijo, Philip Ikazo, and Bala Bello as Deputy Governors, as Governor and Deputy Governors of Central Bank, respectively. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Now, will the Senate confirm the nomination of Olayemi Cardoso for appointment as Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Olayemi Cardoso is hereby confirmed as Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Madam Eme Musoro for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Madam Eme Musoro is hereby confirmed as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mohammed Abdullahi Datijo for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Mohammed Abdullahi Datijo is hereby confirmed as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Will the Senate confirm the appointment of Philip Ikazo for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Philip Ikazo is hereby confirmed as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Bala Bello for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Bala Bello is hereby confirmed as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand to move that the order items on the order paper for today be stood down to be stood down for another legislative date. I so move, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion moved by Leader of the House that other items on the order paper for today be stood down till next legislative day. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the other items on the order paper for the day be stood down to another legislative date. Those who in support of that motion say aye, aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate adjourns for some 20 minutes to enable us come back to consider and approve the votes and proceedings. I so move, Mr. President.
I rise to second the motion moved by the Leader of the Senate that will adjourn for 20 minutes and come back to approve votes and proceedings for today. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, Having exhausted all the items on the order paper, this Senate stands adjourned until what's today? This Senate stands adjourned until the 26th day of the distinguished colleagues, having exhausted all the items on the order paper, this Senate stands adjourned to the 26th day of September 2023 at 6:30 p.m. It stands adjourned to the 26th day, being today at 6:30 p.m.
You've been watching live coverage of the screening at the Senate chambers of the CBN Governor, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, and other nominees for deputy governors. Please stay tuned to Channels Television as we return to our regular programming.
You've been watching a live Channels Television event.
On October the 1st, 2023, Nigeria will be over 23,000 days, 756 months, 63 years as a sovereign nation. Watch Channels Television as it brings you Independence Day special with the theme Empowering Tomorrow, a New Vision for Nigeria, with seasoned analysts, erudite scholars, and policymakers to blaze a new trail.
Vision for the economy, not about the 10 or 4 years, but a vision that talks about what you want to make of this economy in the next 10 years, which means you must look beyond your own time in the office.
If we're weighing down the military on all sorts of internal issues that we're having, who is going to solve this issue? We need to start empowering all the other civil policing agencies we have.
Join us on Sunday, October the 1st,